Hello, everybody. So glad to see you here today. I am glad to be back with another Running with Scissors. We're going to be crafting an amazing project over the next 2 weeks, and I really just can't wait to dive into this. So I'm so glad to see all of you out there today over on the comments. If you are new here, I'd love for you to pop in and say hello. And things just froze. Give me a second. Let's try that again. Stand by for technical difficulties. I think you guys can still hear me, but my screen obviously froze. So something strange going on with the camera. I'm so excited about today too. Yeah, something just really weird happened. So let's see if I can get myself back here. I think my face camera might be dying, guys. Can you give me a shout out in the comments if you can hear me? And at least I'll know that that part is working okay. I know that my hands view seems to be working excellent. So we might just have to do a little switcheroo with the camera real quick so you can see my face. Oh, gotta love technical difficulties, guys. Yeah, I think my face camera died. Okay, so stand by. Oh, I don't know if I can do this. Let's see if I can. I do have a backup. Oh, I have a. Let me think about this. Give me just a second here, guys. I'm going to switch a camera around. Since we're not using the side view camera today, I'm just going to pop this guy over. And we should be fine in just a second here. Oh, technical difficulties always happen on days that I have a really great project that I want to do. Why is that? Oh, so let's change that to this. And it's not picking it up. Yeah, it just isn't deciding. It just really isn't want to pick up any of these cameras. Okay, so I really don't want to do this without my face today because I really think that's part of the fun. Okay, so that works. I can't get. Oh, I know why. Stand by. I can get this. I can get this camera to work. I need to go back to another view here. This is the view that I want to use, and I want to add in. Oh, I know why. Side camera. There's that. So now, good thing I know how to do all these things on the fly, guys. Otherwise, we'd have sure disaster. All right. Hey, look, it's me on the side. So I'm going to switch right to this camera because this has got me in it. So we're going to switch right to this. Okay, perfect. Hey, I'm back. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I guess for Christmas, I want a new camera. Yikes. All right. Let's talk about projects now that we're back on track. Okay. And actually I'm going to flip over to I'm just going to flip over to one thing, which is our tip jar announcements. I'm not going to be on the side here, but thank you so much to Erin, Paula, and Trisha for dropping some change into the tip jar last week. I really do appreciate every time you guys support me in that way. So, of course, there's always two ways that you can support me, which is to use the affiliate links, which are listed in the description down below and in the pinned comment. Those are all the supplies that we're going to be using today. And you can also draw, so when you use those links, they go to the store and I might get a small commission. It's always at no additional cost to you. Like I always say, this is a great way to show support to all of your crafty people out on YouTube and other social media, is to use our affiliate links. And if you want to support me directly, of course, you can always use the tip jar. So thank you to you ladies for sending some tips my way. I do truly, truly appreciate it. It's kind of weird sometimes to ask, but it's just it's always something that humbles me greatly to know that you guys appreciate what I do here and you find value in it enough that you want to throw me a couple bucks. So I really do appreciate it. All right. There weren't any other major announcements, so we can just kind of skip to the good stuff. So now that we're finally like rolling here, thank you for your patience, guys. Okay, so let's talk about this project. This is going to be a 2-week project. This week we're going to do all the pieces and next week we'll do the assembly. So if you have not yet found these boards, and I know I'm seeing some talk in the conversation that you're not finding them. So these are they're called the mini tags. All right. And they're not, like I said, they're not really mini, but there's other ones out there that are even larger. I want to say I found them at a cherry on top. But if you can't find these, there are the smaller ones too. Those are called the number 8 tags. Those would work. You would just you'd just be creating a smaller project. So you would just rearrange things a little differently. And let me show you a project that I use with that. Oh. So this is the number 8 tag for reference. If you have the number 8 tags, you can see the size difference in those. All right. And then, like I said, I've seen some other tags that are even larger than the mini tag. So it's like the medium tag and the large tag. And the medium tag, I think, is like 6 inches by 10, because this is like 4.5 by 8, something like that. I think we discovered last week. Yeah, 4.5, I think, by 8 or 8.5. So the next one up is like a 6 by 10. And then there's even like an 8 by 12. I mean, there's some really big ones. But I thought this was a really cute size. So if you're having problems finding it, though, here's something that you can do. I want you to grab some cardboard, whether that is a cardboard from packaging or it's even like a cereal box. Grab some cardboard, cut it in some rectangles and glue them together. All right, so that they're nice and laminated and glued together. You could even use double-sided adhesive sheets and just glue them together to make something a little thick. I would say this is about, maybe 5 or 6 sheets of cardboard glued together. You could make your own tag that way if you were really hard up to do it. Penny, our friend in Australia, I know she said her husband cut her up some pieces. If you've got even a spare wood at home, maybe you do a DIY projects around your home, maybe your spouse or even you are into doing woodworking or whatever. My husband and I are always doing things like that, so we've got tons of scrap wood outside. You could even use a 2x4. It would be thicker, obviously, here, but the idea would be the same front kind of concept. So if you can't find the craft supply, get creative. I know there's plenty of ways that you guys can come up with creating something that is about this size and shape. It doesn't even have the cutoff ends. It could just be square. It doesn't even need to have the circle on it. You can die cut some circles and do some creative things with that later. Okay, so We're not going to actually be getting to the tag piece of it this week. So if you're really hard up for the tag, you've got another week to come up with an idea on how to create something for that. All right. Penny says she's very lucky that her husband made her son. Yay! This is so awesome. If you are going to make them, I would recommend getting a 1/4 inch MDF or 1/4 inch fiberboard, because that's basically what this seems to be, and then have them cut up. Sue says she has some 5x7 matte board. Yeah, you could do it thinner and just use that matte board, or you could laminate 2 pieces of matte board together, and that would make it nice and rigid. Right, so that's my tip on getting a supply that will work like this. All right, maybe I'll have to have my husband make some up and I can sell them on my website. All right, let's see. So I want to try to keep today at about an hour. And I think that's about what we'll be able to do with all the background stuff that we need to make here. So one other thing I'm going to mention is if you happen to have little binder clips like these come in really handy for holding pieces together. So these are the largest I could find them. They're like 2 inches wide, and they're pretty fat. So this worked out really well to be able to like hold this together. I put one on this side and one on this side. Actually, I even used an acrylic block to kind of keep something straight across here. But I'll be using these next week when we're talking about putting things together and gluing them down, because things like to slide a little bit when you use liquid adhesive, and it's helpful to have something to clamp it down in place. All right. So, like I said, if you've got some binder clips, grab yourself a pair of whatever size that you have or more. All right, so for today, like I said, we're going to do pieces. So we're going to tackle this in sections. So I'll keep bringing the tag up, showing you what we're working on. So the first thing that we're going to work on actually is this piece of tulle here. It doesn't seem like that would be the first thing that we would do, but we're going to do this first because we need to actually color it. And I thought that would be probably a good first thing to do, so that way it can sit and rest a little bit. All right, so I just have a piece of white tulle ribbon here. It comes on a big spool. This is like 6-inch wide tulle ribbon. And I like to just use white. And the reason is because I can then dye it. So the first thing I'm going to do is put on some gloves. I'm kind of excited. So these are just regular blue latexy gloves. I just found some online that are biodegradable, and this is one of my last pairs of blue ones, so I'm hoping to get some of those biodegradable ones and give them a try to see if I like them, because I would much rather use something that I can biodegrade than having these guys here. Okay, so I'm going to dye this with some Kitsch Flamingo Distress spray stain. Now this is like a water-based stain, and it's not necessarily going to be color fast when it dries, although I've noticed that now that this is completely dry, it is fairly color fast. Like, it's not coming off on my fingers, so it will dry permanently enough for our purposes. And then if you want, you can always seal your project when you're done. All right, so I'm just gonna crumple this up in my hands and put a couple of spritzes in here. And just let that roll around. All right, and now it's pink. All right, so I want this to dry a little bit. I didn't want it to be too overbearing, so that's why I went for the pink. All right, so I'm just going to set this aside and let that dry for a little bit, and we will get back to this a little later. All right, so that is going. Side, and now I've got like Kitsch Flamingo all over my gloved hands, hence why the gloves, because otherwise my hands would all be Kitsch Flamingo. All right, talk about ink sprays. Kitsch Flamingo, yeah, we're going to use that one again, and I don't know what I did with the lid. Oh, there it is. Okay, we're going to use, let's do the distress stuff first. So another distress spray stain we're going to use is brushed pewter. All right, I've got for Oxide sprays, I have Tattered Rose, Seedless Preserves, and Worn Lipstick. And then I pulled out 2 from Altenew. I've got Puffy Heart and Cosmic Berry. So here's my message to you. Pick out pinks and reds and purples that you have, that you like, and you don't have to go out and buy anything special. All right, I've got some other supplies in here that we will get to. I don't have enough room. I really don't. Okay, that and some paper towels. Okay. Next up, a spray box. I have a splat box. I like it because it does have the high back. Technically, you can collapse this. I don't, because it's always like junky, and once it's dry, I never really think about collapsing it. I just put it up on a high shelf and then it's out of the way. All right, so down here in the bottom, I have some paper towel, and as you can see, I've already used this paper towel, but I'm just going to leave it in there because it's going to work just fine. And we need some cardstock. I am using watercolor card because it's a little thicker. You can use just plain white cardstock if you want. You can use colored cardstock if you want something a little different. You can use Bristol paper, thicker Bristol paper. I just happened to pull out some watercolor paper. All right. I'm going to move my sample out of there. All right, so I'm popping this in my splat box here, and we are going to do the Jackson Pollock technique. I'm so excited about this. So I shared this as a technique video a couple weeks ago, and then I actually used that piece for this project. So we're going to do that technique for today. Okay, so I'm going to start off. It doesn't really matter what color you start off with, and it doesn't matter how much or how little you do. The more you do, the more paper you're going to cover up. The less paper, or the less you do, obviously, the more white you're going to have showing. So the key is that you're going to use your lid with your spray, because we're going to fling from the lid. All right, so I'm just going to spray, like 2 sprays, believe it or not, is enough, because that'll give you a big splatter. All right, so just like Jackson Pollock, if you're not familiar with his work, crawl out from under your rock and go look him up. I'm just going to fling this. All right, you ready for this? Fling. Which is why it's really good that the splat box has a back to it, because if it flings across, then you might be in a little bit of trouble. All right, so if you wanted more and you don't have any left in your cap, you can just fill it up again and then fling again. All right, so I let this soak in for just a minute, and I see I got it on my hands. Again, another good reason to be wearing gloves. All right, so the lid I would not put back on your spray bottle at this point, because otherwise it's gonna like ooze out. So just set it aside. Maybe keep it with the spray bottle just in case you're going to use that color again. All right, this is a really dark color. If I leave it on here, it's gonna stay kind of dark and gooky like that. So I, especially on this one, for this particular color, and like I said, I started with the Cosmic Berry from Altenew. I'm going to use a paper towel to grab some of that ink and pull up the color. So instead of looking like that, now it looks much more Cosmic Berry. All right. Oh, Cece. Jackson Pollock. Gotta look him up. All right. It's helpful sometimes to do some heat setting in between. So just a quick little run over it to dry it a little bit. All right, so if you don't heat this up, what's going to happen is, if you don't dry it, when you spray your next color, if it's wet, they're going to just blend together instead of being kind of distinct looking. All right, so it's up to you. You can experiment with it. Sometimes it might just get you the look that you're going for. Okay, so the next one I'll do is Distress Oxide spray, Seedless Preserves. So I'm mixing Distress Oxides along with regular spray stains and Distress spray stains because some of that will give you a little bit of a chalky look. Some of it will not, right? Okay, so here's another thing that I've thought worked really well is turning my card in between colors. So that way it's not really directional. For some reason, when I'm flicking, a lot of times I get kind of the same look, and I didn't want them all to be going the same direction and looking the same way. I want to fill up the space. So by turning my card, I get something like that. All right, so now we're kind of any direction, which is great. All right, so let that soak in again a little bit. And just blot some of this color off. When you're blotting, if you're going to use a paper towel that already has color on it, just be careful that you're not transferring that. Try to find a clean place to blot from. All right, just to try to preserve your sprays as much as possible. All right, so now we will move on to our next color. So this is really just like a rinse repeat. You're just picking a color and doing your thing. So let's do Kitsch Flamingo. Sue asks, can you blot with another piece of cardstock? Well, of course. How about I grab one and we see what that looks like? All right, so let's let that sit there for a second. See, that's why it's so fun to have you guys live, because sometimes I don't think of things like that. Like when I did the video, I was like, oh, I'm just going to blot this with paper. Oh, I know why. If you blot this, you're going to smush it. So though you could blot with another piece of, like I just thought of that as if I were to put this down right now, these guys would smush. And that's not the look that I want. I want to keep the splat. All right, so you can experiment with that. I'm gonna pass. Maybe I'll try on my own. But this is really more about lifting up the excess ink. So that way you're seeing a more true color, especially in the instance of some of these darker sprays. You don't want to destroy the splash. All right. So like in the case of the Kitsch Flamingo, I don't necessarily have to lift it up. I probably could dry it and it would be okay. I shouldn't necessarily have to pick it up. But on the dark ones, I definitely want to blot. All right, so here's the example of that. So here I blotted and you can see that there's like some variation in color, and here I blotted and it's nice and light. Here I didn't and it's a little darker. All right, so definitely if you're blotting, it's because you want to pick up some of the color so that way it shows a little differently than it would if you didn't blot it. All right, and then it also saves a little bit of time with the drying. Next. we'll do some more lipstick. All right, so I'm just rotating this around as I go. There's no rhyme or reason to that either, really, so you could just kind of keep going back and forth or whatever. And I am also like tossing with both my right and my left hand. It gives me a different look because I'm just, you know, differently abled with each hand. And the way that you hold this will do different things. So like if you come at it from the top, you're going to get more of a splotch like that. If you come at it from the side, you're going to get a trail. It's really fun. All right. But you do really have to dry in between to keep the colors nice and separate. If I do one right now and it runs right into this, they're going to blend. And I want to keep my colors separate. So we got to dry some more. All right, so you can see how that works. See how this was dry here? So we got just like some overlapping, which is really cool. Some overlapping in here. This overlap here is really nice and defined. That's the look that we're going for with this particular technique. Okay, so I got Puffy Heart and Ulta New spray. So this has a little bit of sparkle to it. That you may or may not see. And that just kind of landed in the same place. There we go. If you want to get in a particular place and it's just kind of not cooperating, of course you can turn your card. There we go. That looks a little murdery right now. And it's going to dry different, right? All right, so I want to get the color off of here. It's a little intense right now. So let's get rid of some of that intensity. There we go. I missed a section here. That's it. As I'm doing this, I'm thinking, you know, you probably could do something very similar to this with alcohol inks and Yupo. That might work. I almost tried to put the lid on that. That would have been bad. All right. Next, we're going to go for a light color. It doesn't look so murderous now, Sue, because it looks much more pink than it did a minute ago. Okay, so this is Tattered Rose. And here's the cool thing. So as you start to add these layers, when you're talking about distress oxides, you're going to start getting lifting. So it's going to kind of lift the color here, and it's going to pool around a little differently. It's a really fun result. All right, so Tattered Rose. So this is kind of almost a skin tone peachy color. All right, so let's try just a little bit of this. All right, you guys are loving the blood spatter look. Hey, you know what? Halloween, right? We can do something really ominous and come up with a cool look for Halloween. But when you add other layers over it, of course, it stops looking like that. All right. So at this point, I've gone through all of my colors. I've got silver left, and I want to save that for my last layer, I think. Actually, we could do it now and then kind of decide if we wanted to add any more colors to this. We certainly could. Silver doesn't have to be your last color, or your metallic doesn't have to be your last color. You don't, of course, have to add a metallic at all. But of course, this month is doing some glitter and shine, so I wanted to make sure that I added some kind of sparkle. So this is the Distress Spray Stain in Brushed Pewter. And that's going to give us some silver sparkle. And then, of course, we had a little bit of shimmer in a couple of our other colors. All two new ones have shimmer in them. All right. I'm going to grab another paper towel too. Right. So there we go. We got some shimmer from our silver. It's very subtle. All right, so here we go. We are at a decision point where I would have to decide if I was going to add more color to this or leave it as is. Perhaps I'm not happy with some of the white spaces in here. I can go back and start selectively adding in different colors. So maybe I wanted, you know, more of a pink look. I feel like I need some more Kitsch Flamingo in there. So I'm just going to grab my cap and pop in another toss or two of color. and it's going to react with the things that are that it's gone on top of, right? So you're going to get some different colors, like the way that it just pooled around that silver right there is really neat. It's got some really cool effects going on to now. It's kind of interesting how it arced right along with this one right here. So now I have like this double spray that looks really cool. All right, so let's dab that off. There we go. So that filled in a little bit of space, and I think that looks better. All right, maybe I feel like the very first one that I did, the Cosmic Berry, is a little lost. I don't want to do like a big spray on here because it's a very intense color. So I'm only going to spray once in my cap here, and I'm going to kind of go from high up, like all the way up here. And then just get a couple little sprays around there. All right. And remember, this one is a really dark color, so I found that it was best to definitely blot this one to get the true color to really show up. All right. So there it is. I think this is my finished panel. Or at least finished with the Pollock spraying. So there we go. That's it for our splat box today. Yay. Okay, so all of the caps need to be washed. So I'm just going to grab these and toss them in the sink. So if you don't have a sink nearby, put them in a container where you can carry them safely to your sink in your kitchen or whatever it is that you use to clean up from all of your crafty stuff. And then that's actually the end of our ink sprays for this project. So that's why I said, if you don't have ink sprays, or if you don't have ink sprays in particular colors or whatever, you can mix up this project and do it in whatever color you like. Utilize what you already have, or if you're really in love with it and you think you'll use the ink sprays for more than just this project, go ahead and grab the colors that you like. All right, so there we go. That's the end of my gloves too. So no more gloved hands. Clean up all of my workspace here real quick. There we go. All right, so let me just dry this one more time. All right, so the next thing we're going to move into is embossing paste, because that also needs to dry. So let's take a look again at our sample at what we need to emboss. So on our background piece, there is some embossing paste. All right, there's embossing paste on our heart here, and there's embossing paste on our tool. Okay. The embossing paste I used... and my stencils. Okay. So the embossing paste I used for the background piece is Paper Glaze by Picket Fence. This is their Artemisia Silver. Again, if you've got white paste, you can take some of that spray and turn it silver, right? Or you could turn it a different color, whatever. I'm going for the silver here because obviously we've got this kind of silver bit going on with this in here. Okay, so this is going to get cut down obviously and go onto our card or onto our tag. All right, so a lot of this is going to be covered up, but we can duplicate and move it around a little bit. It doesn't need to be perfect because again, it's just kind of like a background texture-y feel. So I'm just going to put some of this on here kind of loosely. It doesn't need to go over everything. Like I'm not going to fill in these hearts here solid. Actually, I'm probably going to avoid them a little bit. All right, so there's that. And then I can move it down a little bit and add just a little bit more here. And then maybe a little here. All right, so this is all now. Got the embossing paste on there, right? So that really kind of brought everything together. You had this really cool splatter in the background, and now you've got this embossing paste over it. And then when we cut it to size, it's going to look really cool. All right, so this panel now is complete, and we will set this aside to dry until next week, and we will put it onto our tag then. All right, so this is good. All right, while I have this out, I'm going to do the other piece that needs to be done with it. Oh, and I should mention this stencil is the Crafter's Workshop stencil, and it is called Two Hearts. All right, so again, if you don't have something like this, really the idea is just kind of a distressy look. So you can grab something out of your stencil stash that maybe is just a distress pattern. It could even be dots or any other number of things, right? It doesn't have to be exactly this. I'm like running out of space to put things. Okay, so remember last week we did that card with the foil on the acetate, and I said I was going to save the heart because I was going to use it for this project. All right, so that heart is this heart right here. And as you can see, it's got that nice chevron on there. It's got the transparent areas, and then it's got the embossing paste on it as well. So it's the same glaze that I just used. And I will just run a little bit over the heart. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect. We're just trying to get some texture on there. And that's it. So now there's some texture on there. This is going to take a little longer to dry, but we don't need to do anything else with it today. So this, again, will get set aside, and we're done with this stencil. And we're done with this paper glaze too. I might need to get a new bottle of this one soon. I've been using this one a lot. So I'm going to just clean off my palette knife here because we're going to use this again. All right, and we're going to do our last we need this guy. Show you that. So the tool that is pink now has hearts on it. All right. This is a fun little technique. Okay, so our tools should be mostly dry, believe it or not. If it's not dry, you might need a paper towel just to make sure that it's dry. Put that dried on there. It didn't leave any pink on my hands. That's pretty cool, right? So you can just double check if you want. But see, look, no pink residue. Perfect. So now I have this really delicate pink tool. And we're just going to take our stencil and stencil over it with some paste. I'm going to use the Distress Grit Paste for a couple reasons. One, it's translucent, and two, it has some texture to it. You can use white if you want. Just know that the white might look a little more stark against the rest of the elements in your project. So I like that it was a translucent. It doesn't end up being completely translucent, but translucent enough. All right, so this is a heart stencil from scrapbook.com. And I'm just putting it over the tool. Whoa. Thought it was going to stay in place. A lot of the times once you start going with it, it stays right in place. I didn't think I was going to have to hold it down. Silly me. You don't have to get it perfect. All right, so if your hearts aren't completely filled in, that's okay. This particular piece ended up being, I don't know, I guess it's about, yeah, it's about 12 inches long in case you're looking for measurements. All right, so then I'm going to lift this up. It's going to stay stuck to this mat. This is a Teflon baking sheet. And I do have this linked down below because I really like this one. It's got a nice slick finish to it. So this will stick to it, but you can pull it up afterwards. You can also use just a regular silicone sheet if you want. Either way works. So I'm lining up the hearts here. If you want to be really picky about it, you can do that. Just to get the rest of this down here. Although once you have it scrunched up and in place, no one's going to notice that the pattern doesn't match if you don't match it up. All right, so there we go. So now this is going to sit on this mat and dry. All right, it needs, I don't know if this says how long it takes to dry. It doesn't, but it probably takes about 20 minutes maybe. I would check it in about 20 minutes, and then what you should be able to do is actually lift it up and take it off of here. And a lot, if not all, of the embossing paste should come with it. It will leave some behind, and that's okay too. And that is our embossing paste step. All right, so we are now done with embossing pastes, and we can set this guy aside to dry. If you're running short on time and you want to heat set that, do it very, very carefully. The tool is just nylon and it will shrivel up and melt if you are not very careful with your heat tool. So I recommend letting it air dry if at all possible. Right, done with these guys. Next, as we come up on our last 10 minutes here, we're going to do some die cutting. So let me show you all the fun paper I have. Okay, this piece here is the stuff. It's called Sizzix Texture Roll. I'm going to read this to you because this is a very interesting medium that you might want to use for something other than what I'm using it for today. You can wash and distress it to create a leather effect. And it's perfect for die cutting. It can be embossed. It can be sewn. It's really kind of crazy. So this back is a very durable, it's not even, I don't even know if that it's necessarily a paper. I don't really couldn't tell you what kind of substance it is, but this is just a very interesting material. Again, it's called Sizzix Texture Roll. It comes in lots of different colors. This is the rose gold. All right, so we're using that. We're using some purple. This is the plum color from Hero Arts that I really like. And then I've got a piece of metallic rose gold as well. This I love. There is a holographic paper by Lawn Fawn, and it comes in like a 4-pack, but it's an assortment pack. So you get like one sheet of this and one sheet of like a couple of different looks. But this is really, really fun. And then just a piece of vellum. This is a thicker piece of vellum. It's like a 48-pound vellum. It's a really nice and hefty. All right, so we're going to use all of these pieces to make all of these little hearts. I'm using Stamp Market's Messy Hearts and Scrapbook.com's Nesting Hearts. So from the nesting hearts, I'm going to use the largest heart here to do both of these guys. Okay, so those are going to be those two. And then I'm also going to do a heart from that. And I think 2 hearts. There's 2 hearts from that. So that is the scrapbook.com stuff. And then these guys, I love these. So I talked about these last week. And the cool thing about them is that they somewhat nest together. Nancy, you have just like solved the mystery for me. She calls this stuff craft text. She says it's what Levi's Jeans uses for the labels on the back of their jeans, and that you can sew it and label it and wash it and all those kinds of things. I don't know what I was thinking, but I don't know. I guess I didn't actually use this heart. So that's what I was thinking. Okay, so these guys, these messy hearts, they actually nest inside of each other if you will allow them to do so. And by doing that, you end up getting these really cool intermediate sizes. So you're not only going to get the 4 hearts that are a part of this set, you're going to get hearts from in between, which is way cool. All right, so let's start doing some die cutting. What can I fit on here? So those guys. And craft text. See, now I'm going to call it craft text. And that'll work. So we'll do this for our first one. So see, it cuts like butter. It's just really amazing. All right, so this I could even use for some other scraps. Got one little heart there. And, oh, there we go. All right, so that will go on. This will go on. Okay, so here's the results of these guys. See how they are like all put together? Look at what they make. It's so beautiful. So I don't need this big one. That's why I didn't need that big piece of paper. So I'm not going to use this one. But I am going to use this like skinny in between piece. So that's this heart here. And then this one here I'm going to use for over here. And then the rest of these actually are just extras. I don't need them. But they're so cute. I mean, like, why would you not cut them out while you're at it? So this could like go straight on a project where I could do this a couple of times and fit them together. If you're going to do that, you need to make sure that they stay taped together though. All right, because you want to make sure that they don't fall apart in between. So I'm going to do the same thing with the holographic piece. And again, I really don't need all the layers, but I'm going to try to get as many as I can because they're so cool. All right, and then I need this piece of vellum with the large heart. There. I love it when you can add a whole bunch of things to your mat and cut them all out at the same time, right? I mean, that makes it so much easier and quicker. Okay, so like I've talked about this whole time, if you don't have these particular dies, but you do have heart dies, use your heart dies, and hopefully they nest together enough that you can get some that are just the outline pieces. All right. If you don't have hearts at all, use nesting stars, use a different shape. You can even do squares. It would be kind of cool, right? All right. So there's that, and there's that, and the rest of this is scrap. Okay, so here we go again with our messy hearts from the stamp market. Okay, so since I stuck these guys together the exact same way, like they did not come separated. Technically, I would be able to take these and kind of mix and match these together, which would be cool. All right, and again, I don't need the large one, so this is an extra piece, and this is the one here that I want. That one's going to go right in there. All right, so I've got a whole bunch of extra pieces here, so like, see what I'm saying? Maybe you could start doing a fun mix and match deal here, where you can mix these two together and make it totally a whole nother card or another project with it, right? So I got some extras here, no problem. And our other little heart. All right, so let's set a few things aside because we're done with those. Actually, we're kind of done with everything for the day. All right, so here's what you should have. This is end of day 1, and we are coming right up at the hour, which is perfect. Now, let me tell you guys, I do not ever time out these lessons. I just look at it when I'm done with it, and I'm like, yeah, I could teach that in an hour. So I'm really glad that this worked out the way that it did. Because now we can just talk about exactly what you should have so you can prep for next week, and then we will do all of the assembly on this next week, and that should actually work out to being about an hour or two. Okay, so hearts wise, you should have a big heart that's either done in like a metal cardstock or in this crafty text stuff, and the same size in vellum. Okay, so those are going to be for this little piece here. And then you should have some heart outlines, and these measure approximately like 3 by 3, 2.5 by 3. All right, so like I'm just looking at my board here. So this is like fitting in a 2.5 by 2.5 square. This one's fitting in more of a 3 by 3 square, just to give you an idea of the size. But you should have 3 hearts like that. You need to have a smaller solid heart, and this one is like 1.5 by 1.25 by 1.25, and then a couple of smaller metal hearts that are going to measure like 3/4 inch. All right, so that's what you need for this bit. Let me just double check and make sure that I don't have any other hearts cutouts. Nope, I think that's it. All right, then you should have your Pollock splattered piece with your embossing paste on it. And this is almost dry. All right, this is still wet, but this is your vellum or your acetate heart. If you don't have something like this, Again, improvise. You could use another piece of metallic paper. You could use just a piece of window sheet cut with the heart without the metal, and then just do some more embossing paste on it. And then you've got your piece of tulle, and this is sat here for a little bit, and you can see like it's coming up okay. I would let it sit for just a little longer though. All right, so truly like 20 to 30 minutes. Wait until it's completely dry, even, and that would be great. All right, so there you go. For next week, then you're going to need your tag or your base, whatever it is that you're going to use for that. And let me show you the rest of the card lines we'll be adding in. I am using a Picket Fences Celebration Gem Mix. We will have the little center circle piece that goes on the tag. If you are using a creation of your own, you might want to go ahead and do some die cuts and maybe mount them together, whatever, to make like a little circle at the top, because I did embellish that. I told you I was going to, and I did. I love it. It's so cool. All right, so you're going to need that. I am also using some of these gumdrop hearts from Tim Holtz. So one of those. I'm using some mechanicals. These are metal heart embellishments. They'd only come in like one design per pack. So I'll be using 3 different ones for this project. All right. So with these guys, find some notions that you might have laying around. Do you have buttons that are in a shape that would work for you? Even if they're not hearts, but they're along the same color scheme, the round buttons would work just fine. Maybe you want to add a little bit of thread into them to make them look kind of like they're finished and they've been snipped off of something or whatever. That would be really great. And then I'm also, I love this. Eyelets are coming back into style. I'm so glad I did not get rid of my crocodile, because now I can use eyelets again. So these are the wide eyelets from We Are Memory Keepers in red. So shades of red, although this one looks really brown to me. And this comes in like a 40 pack. So there's like 10 of each color, which is really great. And you use your crocodile to put those in place. And I actually used 2 of them. I'm using a pink one here. And then this one is gem encrusted. Get that to focus. It's so stunning. All right. So again, if you don't have eyelets, you can use some circle embellishments for that kind of thing. And then the last thing is going to be your sentiment. I'm using these ones from Tim Holtz. They are these chipboard pieces. There's a whole bunch of them in this particular pack. Actually, let me pull them out real quick for you. So I will use 1 or maybe 2 of these next week, because again, they only come 1 per pack. Oh, and so let me show you. They are these quote chips by Tim Holtz. And I used one on that other little leaf project that I showed you. And then of course this one here. All right. So there you go. Those are all the pieces that we're going to be using next week. So that way, if you need to find a substitute, you can do that. And we're going to roll with this. So I hope you guys had fun in this first episode, putting together all the pieces that you need for this project. And next week, we will do all of the assembly. We'll talk about some design principles and when too much is too much and when too much is just fine. Because as you can see, this is like an explosion of color and bling, and it is just absolutely perfect. So we're going to have fun with this next week. And yes, you're going to have a really cool project that you can put up from now until whenever you want to take it down. All right, guys, I guess I can switch to my hands real quick here. My base. Oh, I totally forgot that camera isn't working right. Funny what happens in an hour. Anyway, guys, grab what you need for next week and let your things dry. Take some time to revisit the video and do all of the little pieces and parts that you need. Take a look at the way that this is laid out, so you can kind of get an idea of how your pieces are going to work. excuse that. And we will come back to this next week and put it all together. All right, guys, I hope you have a wonderfully crafty weekend, and I will see you next week. Happy crafting.